Lars is ready for us, and he will be talking about media sustainability. So Lars is the founder and president of the Sustainable Journalism Partnership. He also served as a senior advisor at Forjo Linnaeus University and is Sweden's representative for the UNESCO IPTC Intergovernmental Council. So before these roles, he worked as a reporter for leading Swedish media for 10 years. As a media, he also was a media and communication advisor for the private sector, civil society, and other governments. He is very decorated. Among other the organization that he has saved. Yeah, he has served at the Swedish Prime Minister's office, the Swedish International Development Cooperation Agency, the OECD Development Assistance Committee, the Cabinet of Ministers of Ukraine, the regional Kurdish government in Iraq. So during the last 12 years, he has led the development of Forjo at Linnaeus University, the leading media development organization in Sweden. And in 2022, he founded the global NGO Sustainable Journalism Partnership. So yeah, Lars brings an extensive experience, supporting sustainable journalism practices globally, particularly in Africa. Yeah, this is like a shortened version of his CV. There is a lot. Over to you, Lars. I had to
Thank you.
summarize.
Thank you, Tabele, for that introduction. I almost feel a bit embarrassed. And I'm very happy to have been invited here and to talk to you, despite that I'm kind of an odd bird. So let me just start with checking out if you all can see and hear me. So please react, send some love or some applaud or a happy smile or a thumbs up to me, just so I know that you are all kind of connected and happy to listen to me. Oh, I see a lot of hearts and thumbs up, and that's wonderful. That's a big heart coming there. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much. So I will say a few words about sustainable journalism, and I think just like Adedeji said, yes, we need to change our mindset. And I think that is true for everything we do. Business as usual is not an option. And if we look at what is business as usual, how do we, I mean, if we start with how do we use the word sustainability in the media sector? And I think that the media sector, media industry is probably the last industry in the world that use sustainability in the old meaning, that is stable profit over time. As you can see by the color of my hair, I've been around for some years, and I think it's really time for us to look at sustainability not only from an economic perspective, but also from an environmental and a social perspective, because that is how the rest of the world views sustainability. And I think that, I mean, I have been engaged in journalism for 40 years, actually. And if I look at the history, I remember, I mean, the golden years in the 80s and 80s and 90s, it was easy to make money on journalism. We didn't have any competition from social media that we see now. It was much less media capture, much more space for freedom of expression. Disinformation was not a problem like we have it today, I mean, due to social media. And there was much higher trust in the media from the audiences. So we see all these crucial factors have actually worsened during the last 25 years, I would say. So this is, of course, one of the reasons why we need to rethink. And if we look at society, we see that if what I mentioned now can be defined as a sustainability crisis of the media and of journalism, then there's also a sustainability crisis of the society, not least related to climate change. I mean, climate change is changing everything, because for the first time in the history of mankind, we understand literally that the resources of our Earth, of our planet, are limited, and we are really on the verge of abusing these resources, and we have passed some critical limits already. So it's unfortunately the whole climate debate has turned into a political debate. This has, in my view, nothing to do with politics. Climate change is happening. We can see it everywhere, and not least you in South Africa can see it. I can see it in Sweden. When I was a child, we used to have lots of snow in winters. We don't have that anymore in Stockholm, where I live. So we all experience climate change, and still it's kind of disputed if it happens, if it's due to human activities or not. This is a fact. It's a fact. It's not a kind of something that you can politically argue about. So this is one part of the sustainability crisis of society. We also see, of course, armed conflicts turning up, Ukraine, Palestine, Israel, two examples, where we have very different opinions. Sweden has just recently joined NATO. The South African government has made some supportive comments about Putin. So we are all engaged in these conflicts, even though we are not directly involved. Artificial intelligence, the uncontrolled development of artificial intelligence, fantastic opportunities, but also very scary development. And I think, unfortunately, what we see now is very much a concentration of power, economic and cultural, political power, to even fewer hands. We already know that, I mean, the 8 richest persons in the world, they own as much as half of the world's population, the poorest half. So economic inequality is an extreme sustainability crisis. We all see it, we all experience it. Crumbling democracy is another crisis. We see that, I think that now 14% of the Earth's population live in functional democracies. I believe that independent journalism is an indispensable part of democracy. If we look at a liberal democratic model, of course, independent journalism is one of the ground pillars in democracy. I'm not saying that liberal democracy is the only system, the only valuable system. I think that each country needs to find their system. But I think that if I'm to choose between dictatorship and democracy, I would all days choose democracy. And we see that democracy is inclined all over the world, not least in here in Europe. We see it in the US, where Trump might win the next elections. So to summarize, we see that we have 2 sustainability crises that I believe are interconnected. The sustainability crisis of society and the sustainability crisis of society, of media. So we were a bunch of old editors, media researchers, actually most of us from Sweden and from South Africa, that said, well, let's see what can we do, what can we do to change this, because what we see now, the present development is not sustainable. Both independent journalism and our societies are threatened. So we need to do something. We started an NGO that is called the Sustainable Journalism Partnership. And among the pioneers were a number of South African media people. I'm sure you know them. They're like old ones like me. So Guy Berger, who used to be with UNESCO, Anthea Garman, who is at Rhodes, and Franz Kruger, who used to be at Wits, and Theodora Dame Agintete, who is now at Durban University, and others. So we said, well, let's see how can we rethink journalism based on that it's not enough to make profit. I mean, that is difficult enough already. But if we want to keep trust, if we want to be, at the discussion table, if we want to influence development in society, we need to see journalism in a sustainability perspective. I sent you some slides. I don't know if you can share them or if you want me to share my screen.
All right. Can you try sharing from your side? I'm opening now my oh, if you're not winning, let's see, because I was sharing something. Okay. All right.
Can you see my screen now?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Could I have some more thumbs up and hearts and because I don't see it.
Okay,
Yeah.
there are plenty of hearts and thumbs up.
I'm happy
We
that
can see it.
that's wonderful. That's the most frustrating things with these online things. You don't know, are you listening or are you sleeping or are you checking your email or what are you doing? Well, I'm happy to see that. I'm so happy to see that there are so many thumbs up, and I'm trying to yeah. So basically, what we ended up with were these two questions. I mean, how can journalism contribute to a sustainable society without losing our journalistic integrity? And of course, we need to make profit, or at least we need to be viable. We need to make ends meet. Otherwise, we're out of business. So it's kind of a double challenge. I think that if journalism is to remain relevant and become more relevant, we need to do really good reporting about the sustainability issues. And of course, climate change is one, gender equality is another, all the things that need to be in place for a sustainable society. And unfortunately, I see what is happening today is that we do a lot of doom and gloom reporting about sustainability. And if we look at research, we see that this is not efficient. It's not efficient. We need to consider our audiences. And one good thing with the digitalization of journalism is that we can know our audiences, and we have to know them even better. And we can see in most countries that people are kind of fed up with doom and gloom journalism, especially about what might happen in 10 years' time if we don't drive less car and eat less meat. People are fed up with those kind of news. So we need to describe climate change as an adventure, like any adventure, like the world did after Second World War, when we needed to rebuild the world, and we did, and it was an adventure. Now we have an enormous challenge ahead of us. Let's look at it as an adventure. It can be, it must be an adventure, and if we just stuff people's throats with another forest fire, another flooding, it's not efficient. And I can totally understand why we are doing this. And I've done a lot of similar stories myself. But when I look at research, when I look at how audiences react to this, I see it's not efficient. It's not good for the sustainability of societies because it scares people away. And we know that news avoiders, especially among young people, they are growing. That's a growing crowd. And that's one of the biggest problems, one of the biggest challenges for journalism. How do we find a way to young audiences so we can renew our audiences? That is necessary both for profitability and for the sustainability of society. The second question is, of course, how can media itself be more sustainable, environmentally, socially, and economically? And economically, I mean, we need to have efficient business models, and I know there are a lot of good discussions, and I think there's a lot of consciousness about this, that we need the old business models are disrupted, and we need to find new business models. If they are mixed, and I think that each media has to find its own business models, and I don't have the time to dwell into all the different kinds of business models, but if we want to keep the trust of our audience, if we want to show that we are relevant, we need also to merge the business thinking, the commercial thinking, with social and environmental thinking. And I believe that the way ahead is mission-driven journalism, value-driven journalism. I don't think that that the old school journalism is valid anymore in the present media landscape. We need to show who we are and what we believe in, without refraining from being fact-based. Of course, we always need to be fact-based. So what are the values that I think it's important to address? Well, I think that all values that are related to a sustainable society need to be addressed. We can choose if we want to have a black status quo, if we want to stay in the fossil society, which is obviously not sustainable. We all know that. Or if we want to move towards a green transition. And I don't believe that we can do it in a way that I was taught when I was when I went to school of journalism. I was taught that you get one opinion that says, well, oil is good for society, and then you get another opinion that says oil is bad for society. We all know that the big oil companies, they have been running disinformation campaigns for 40 years, despite that they have known that fossil fuels will charge climate change. The oil companies have known this. So it's not a question anymore of this person A says one thing and this person B says another thing. It's about finding the facts and finding the truths. And in this landscape where disinformation is dominating everywhere, is extremely difficult. So the whole logic of how we do journalism, how we find our content, and how we present the content must be changed. We need to go deeper, and we need to do what is our duty as journalists: find the truth, seek the truth, present the truth, and not listen to the liars. We need to hold government to account on sustainability issues. We know that it's an extremely difficult situation. We know that there's lots of confession of lips among people in power, and they say, yes, we believe in a green transition, and we will do this and we will do that. But if we look at what is actually happening, we see that there's not much happening. So that's an extremely important role for journalism, which is in a way value driven, but also driven by facts and not opinions. The other thing is, for instance, if we talk about social sustainability, I personally believe that as a society that is not economically equal, that is not gender balanced, will not be sustainable. So these are also value-driven questions. I'm not proposing that journalism should turn into some kind of propaganda machine, but I think that we should base our journalism on values that are expressed in the Charter of Human Rights, the equal value of everyone, men and women. And if we look at the present society, that is not the case. So all this is connected to these two questions, and that as you can see, they are all interlinked. If we talk about artificial intelligence, for instance, we know that artificial intelligence will change the reality of journalism dramatically. I mean, it's just incredible what is happening right now. So during the coming 5 years, we will see an enormous change. Better or worse journalism, I don't know, but it will be a changed reality. The same goes for every sector in society. Artificial intelligence will change, just as climate change will change the conditions for society and the conditions for media. So everything that I've talked about is really interlinked. The sustainability crisis of media is very much interconnected with the sustainability crisis of society. Let me see if I can change. So how do we address this in a systematic way? Well, we have made this model, and I've talked a lot about content here, and of course, I mean, content or news, that is what we produce. That is the value that we add to society. And of course, that needs to be top quality, and we need to do journalism in a way that both generates revenue and at the same time contributes to a sustainable society. I think we need to do this if we're going to stay relevant. But a media company is not only its product, it's very much management. This is very much a management issue. We need to have business strategies that are not only how to make money, but also how we can make journalism in a way that is environmentally and socially sustainable. And that is related to things like environmentally sustainable production and distribution, gender balanced and inclusive newsrooms and organizations, and thinking of environmental and social sustainability not as something that we have to do, but think of it as a business opportunity. I'm presently engaged with a project together with The Guardian, Schibsted, which is one of the biggest companies in the Nordic countries, and Sanoma, which is the biggest media company in Finland. So and also Politiken in Denmark. So we are looking at how we can actually put this into practice, and we are doing a number of e-courses. And it's interesting to listen to these leading companies, how they reason. Why do they say that this is important? Well, they say it's all about trust, because as people see what is happening in society today, they know, most people know, I mean, even poor people know what is happening. Climate change is, of course, extremely difficult to understand, but weather change, people see that the weather is changing. The first one to see that the weather was changing was the farmers and the fishermen, but nobody listened to them. But people see that things are changing. People see the inequalities in societies. So we need to address this as journalists, I believe, and we need to do this in order to increase trust, because trust is our most valuable asset. If we don't have trust, if we don't have the trust of our audiences, we don't have anything. And actually, if we look at trust for South African media, it's in an international comparison, it's very high. It's very high. I mean, South African media has a lot of trust from your audiences compared to other countries. I mean, I for instance, I work in Bangladesh. The trust level is, they know 13% of the people trust the media. In South Africa, you have figures that are around 60%, according to if you look at the Reuters Institute digital news report. And that is, in an international comparison, very high figures. So South Africa is in a good position. But I think in order to defend that position and in order to increase trust, I think we need to be even better, and we need to change our and this is not, I'm not talking about specifically South Africa. This is true wherever we are and wherever we go. So thank you. I've been